All right, friends. So today I sent you home with decimal fraction match page 1 and page 2. So this is going to go along with what we've already been working on. It goes along with our naming decimals that we did in our notebook over the weekend. It goes with our lesson we did today when you came with me to the table and when you worked with your group, and then our video that we did before we left. So you need scissors, glue stick, pencil, your notebook, and then those 2 pages. So if you need to pause the video and go get that, go ahead and do that now. If you already have all your stuff, then that's fantastic too. So we left off on page 9. So I'm going to go ahead and number page 10 and 11. And I'm going to start with page 11 and I'm going to title it Decimal Fraction Match. Decimal fraction match. It's also at the top of your pages. So then what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video because I want you to cut out all of these pieces. So you're going to cut out all the squares. So each sheet has 8 squares. So 8 times 2 is 16. So you should have 16 squares. So I'm going to cut as quick as possible. Because I don't want the video to run out on me again like it did last time. And y'all were all like, what happened? Okay, so some of them have fractions on them. Some of them have decimals on them. So I'm going to kind of put mine into like piles, like a fraction pile and a decimal pile. And then when I do this sheet, I'm going to do like a written or word form pile. And then that pictorial representation, we talked about that. That's the picture that represents its value. So I have my picture pile. I have my fraction pile. I have my decimal pile. And I have my word form pile. So if you kind of see, they're in like 4 different piles, so that then when I'm trying to match them all up, because it's a match, then I'm going to pick from their piles. So I have them all in piles right there. Okay, so I'm going to move my piles. The first one I'm going to start with is I'm going to find the words that say 600ths, and I'm just going to put it right there. I'm not really matching it or gluing it down yet. I'm just finding the 600ths. Now, I want you to think about in class when we had our place value chart out, which one would be 600ths. So think about when we had our money with our dimes and pennies, we had our tenths and our hundredths chart, and find which one would be 600ths. Okay. This is the one that you should have because here my 6 is in the hundredths place. I have my ones and my tenths and my hundredths. So that's 600. So I'm just going to set that down next to it too. I'm not gluing it down yet. So I want you to find the fraction that shows 600ths. So that should be the one where the numerator is 6 and my denominator is 100 because I'm dividing it into the 100 pieces, and that's like shading 6 of them. So with knowing that I'm finding the 100 pieces with 6 of them shaded, I want you to go find the pictorial representation of the one that you, or the one that will match up to 600ths. Okay, so you should have found the one that has the 100 pieces and 6 of them are shaded. So let's go ahead and match that up. It's okay if it's not perfect. We're just going to kind of put it like that. Okay, So then you can go ahead and get your glue stick. This would be a great time to pause the video and go ahead and glue all of these down together so that you have all the different representations of 6/100ths. You have the words, you have the decimal, you have the pictorial representation, and you have the fraction representation. And when you're gluing, it's okay if they kind of overlap a little, just as long as you can see it all. All right, so after you have glued those 4 down, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, but this time we're going to do, I want you to find the fraction first, and the fraction I want you to find is 25/100ths. Now I'm going to give you a second, and if you need to pause the video, I want you to find the decimal value or the decimal that represents 25/100ths, the written form of 25/100ths, and the pictorial form of 25/100ths. Go ahead and find those 3. Pause the video. Find those 3. All right, so the word form that you should have found was 25/100ths. The decimal form that you should have found was 0 and 25, because my 5 is in the hundredths place, and that's the last word I say is 25/100ths. And then the pictorial representation that matches, they tried to trick us, is this one right here. There are 25 of them. It's actually an array where there's 5 by 4, or 5 by 5, sorry, 5 by 5, and that is 25 if you do 5 times 5. So go ahead and pause the video, and then you can glue these 4 down in your notebook. Okay, so here's what I want you to do now. I want you to find 6/10ths or 60/100ths. Because remember, if I have 6/10ths, it's got that super secret invisible 0 at the end. And I want you to glue that at the top of page 10. And then I want you to find 2/10ths or 20/100ths with that super secret 0 at the end. And I want you to try and find the other 3 that will match it. The decimal form, the fraction form, and the pictorial representation. I want you to try and match all of those together. So pause the video, match all of those, just set them next to it for now, and then we'll glue them all down. Okay, so for 6/10ths, for the decimal, for 6/10ths or 60/100ths, this should be your decimal, because here we have 0 and 6/10ths or 0 and 60/100ths. Your fraction form will have the fraction with the numerator of 6, your denominator of 10, or your numerator of 60 and your denominator of 100. And then your pictorial representation will have the pieces divided into 100 and 60 of them are shaded, or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, which is also my 6/10ths. Then what you should have left is the 2/10ths or 20/100ths, 2/10ths or 20/100ths, and your 2/10ths and 20/100ths. Make sure you have all that glued down. We're not going to title this page right now. We will title it tomorrow. So have a good night, and I will see you then.